the myth of spontaneity, and the quiet pain it leaves behind. What if I told you that the way you've approached intimacy your whole life might actually be part of the reason you're struggling with it now? Let me introduce you to Harold. He was 72 when I met him. A kind, thoughtful man. He had just retired after a painful divorce and, after years of solitude, met someone special. Someone who made him feel again, feel seen, feel hopeful, feel like maybe this chapter wasn't over. One evening, they tried to be close. But Harold's body didn't respond the way it used to. He panicked. She stepped back. And after that night, Harold never tried again. Not because he didn't want to, but because he thought, something inside me is broken. I'm Dr. James Warren. For over 35 years, I've worked with men in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, helping them rediscover confidence, restore connection, and protect their health in ways they never thought possible. And I've seen something again and again that breaks my heart. Men don't stop being intimate because they're too old. They stop because no one ever taught them how intimacy changes with age. Today, I want to share with you a truth that many men only learn too late. A truth that comes with a cost paid quietly, daily, and shame and silence. Let's begin with the most common and most painful myth. The belief that intimacy after 60 should still be as spontaneous as it was at 30. It won't be. And that's not a weakness. That's wisdom. In your 30s, intimacy could happen anywhere, anytime. Desire turned into action with barely a thought. There was pride in that, a sense of being always ready. No need for conversation, preparation, or permission. You just followed the current. But your biology has changed. And clinging to the old way doesn't just set you up for disappointment. It hurts you. I've seen this again and again. Men walking into my office with eyes lowered, not because they were sick, but because they were emotionally defeated. They had tried to connect. Their body didn't cooperate. They didn't understand why. And instead of asking questions, they blamed themselves. They felt weak, embarrassed. Some gave up on intimacy altogether. Others pretended it didn't matter and quietly suffered. I remember Gerald. He was 69, fit, active, had just started a new relationship after a long time alone. Things were going well, until it came time to be intimate. He hadn't prepared. He expected things to happen like they used to, but they didn't. He froze, fumbled, made an excuse, and never called her again. Not because he didn't care, but because he felt ashamed. Later he told me, I think I lost part of my manhood that night. That's the real cost of the spontaneity myth. Because after 60, intimacy is no longer about instinct. It's about intention. It's not just biology, it's awareness. It's not a reaction, it's a choice. And when men don't understand that, the result isn't just disappointment, it's isolation. They begin to retreat from their partner, from their body, from themselves. And with every step back, loneliness creeps in, shame grows, and a terrible lie takes root. My best years are behind me, but I want to tell you something clearly, gently, and directly. Losing spontaneity does not mean losing intimacy. At 30, everything works on hormones. At 60, 70, or 80, everything works on communication, preparation, and emotional space. And that's not a downgrade. It's a deepening. It takes strength to slow down. It takes wisdom to plan. And it takes courage to be present in a new way. Planning doesn't kill the magic. It protects it. You take the pressure off. You prepare the body by improving blood flow, reducing stress, avoiding dangerous shortcuts. You create a space where true connection can happen. And the satisfaction that comes isn't from performance. It's from the shared experience of simply being together. And let me be clear, ignoring this truth isn't just emotionally painful. It can be physically dangerous. I've known men who suffered heart attacks, strokes, or sudden drops in blood pressure, not because they were being intimate, but because they tried to recreate their 30s without preparing their 70-year-old body. Intimacy is a physical act. It requires respect. And if you treat it carelessly, you're not playing with feelings. You're gambling with your life. This chapter of life asks something new of you. Not less, but different. More presence. More thought. More honesty. You don't need to be who you were at 30. You need to be who you are now, with grace, with understanding, and with the right tools. So if you've been feeling like something's wrong, if you've pulled away, blamed yourself, or stopped believing closeness is possible, let me remind you, you are not broken. You are just being asked to learn a new way. And that new way? It's deeper, slower, sometimes quieter. But it's still love. And it's still yours. What's below is a message from what's above. There's a quiet truth that most men never hear, not from their doctors, not from their fathers, not from the culture that raised them. And it's this. Sometimes, the first sign of a heart problem doesn't come from your chest. It comes from your bedroom. Now, I know that might sound surprising, even uncomfortable. We're used to thinking of intimacy and heart health as two completely separate things. One is private, the other is clinical. But in truth, they're deeply connected, literally. Let's start with the basics. An erection is not just a reaction. It's not just about desire or arousal. It's a vascular event. That means it depends entirely on your blood flow and your blood vessels. The arteries in the pelvis, especially those that supply the genitals, are among the smallest in the body, which means they're often the first to show signs of trouble. When those arteries begin to narrow, blood can't flow freely. That's when men start to notice changes. It takes longer to respond. Things don't feel the same. What once happened automatically now requires effort or doesn't happen at all. And here's the key. Those same blockages that affect the smallest arteries may already be forming in your heart. Let me tell you about David. He was 67, married, semi-retired, a good man with a gentle way about him. He came to my office one morning and said, half laughing, "Doc, I think age is catching up with me." He said things weren't working like they used to, but he figured it was just normal for his age. I didn't laugh. I asked him a few questions. Took a closer look. Something didn't sit right. I ordered a cardiac workup, just to be safe. 3 weeks later, David was in surgery for a 90% blockage in what we call the widowmaker artery, the most critical vessel in the heart. He survived, but barely. He called me from the hospital afterward and said, "I thought I had a bedroom problem. Turns out, I had a time bomb in my chest." That story isn't rare. In fact, it's alarmingly common. For many men, erectile dysfunction is the very first sign of cardiovascular disease. Not pain, not shortness of breath, just a quiet change in how the body responds, and a whisper that something deeper may be wrong. But because of shame, because of silence, that whisper often goes ignored. Men blame stress. They blame their partner. They blame age. And all the while, their blood pressure climbs. Their arteries narrow. Diabetes creeps in unnoticed. And their heart steadily, silently, wears down. Here's the deeper cost. When a man begins to doubt his body, it changes more than just intimacy. It changes how he sees himself. He becomes less confident, less affectionate, less inclined to initiate a conversation, much less closeness. He may still be physically present, but emotionally, he starts to disappear. I've seen this hundreds of times. And I've seen the pain it causes, not just for the man, but for the partner who misses him. The partner who senses he's retreating but doesn't know how to reach him. But I've also seen another path. I've seen men listen to their bodies. I've seen them seek help, not with panic, but with curiosity. They asked questions, got tests, and in doing so, they didn't just improve their intimacy, they saved their lives. Because here's the truth I need you to hear. Shame doesn't heal anything. Action does. Your body is not betraying you. It's trying to speak to you, through delay, through difficulty, through discomfort. Not to punish, but to protect. And if you respond wisely, patiently, you open the door not only to better connection, but to longer life. So what do? You start with honesty. You talk to a doctor you trust. You get your blood pressure checked, your glucose, your cholesterol. You don't jump to pills or quick fixes. You get the facts first. Then, you take simple, steady steps. More movement, better food, less stress. And if intimacy returns along the way, which it often does, you'll know it's because your whole body is healing, not just one part. And if it doesn't return right away, that's okay too. Because what you're doing isn't chasing youth. It's reclaiming trust in your heart, in your health, and in your own skin. And let me say this again, with all the conviction I have after 35 years of practice. A change in response is not a moral failure. It's a message. And it may be the one that saves you. So if you've noticed something different lately, don't ignore it. It might just be your heart asking to be heard before it has to shout. Intimacy isn't just physical, it's emotional medicine. There's something I want to say clearly, especially to the men listening. You are more than a body, and intimacy is more than a performance. It's not just about function, not about whether things work. It's not about technique or ability or some checklist of expectations. Intimacy, real intimacy, is emotional medicine. Let me take you back to a conversation I had with a man named Martin. Martin was 74, a retired teacher, quiet and thoughtful. When he came into my office, his numbers were fine. Blood pressure, cholesterol, everything right where it should be. But something was missing. His eyes. They didn't shine. He looked hollow, as if a light had gone out somewhere deep inside. He told me about his wife, how she'd passed away 5 years earlier. He hadn't been with anyone since. Hadn't even tried. It's not that I don't want it, he said. It just doesn't feel like it's for me anymore. I'm not that person. But as we spoke, I realized something important. He wasn't avoiding intimacy because of age. He was avoiding it because of grief, of loneliness, of fear that no one would ever want him again, not as he is now. He wasn't broken. He was disconnected from others and from himself. And that's something I see often, especially in men. From a young age, we're taught to be strong, to be silent, to keep moving forward no matter what. We don't ask for comfort. We don't show need. We certainly don't say, I miss being held. But here's the truth. Every human being needs connection. And when that need goes unmet, not for weeks, but for years, it doesn't just affect your emotions. It affects your health. I've seen men lose sleep, fall into depression, develop high blood pressure, not because of genetics, but because they were touch-starved, not hugged, not kissed, not told that they were still worth holding. And that pain doesn't go away with time. It settles deeper, until a man starts to believe that maybe this is just how life is now, quiet, routine, alone. But it doesn't have to be. Intimacy, even late in life, isn't just possible, it's powerful. You see, touch isn't just affection. It's chemistry. When someone holds your hand, when you're hugged or kissed, or even gently touched, your body releases oxytocin. That's the hormone of bonding, of trust, of warmth. It lowers your stress hormones. It helps you sleep better. It boosts your immune system. It even protects your heart. Yes, touch literally heals. Even non-sexual closeness, talking on the couch, cuddling before bed, creates a chemical response that makes you feel grounded and emotionally safe. And when that safety is there, your body begins to open again. Not because it's being forced to, but because it's being invited. But too often, men avoid this kind of closeness. Not because they don't want it, but because they're afraid. Afraid they won't be able to perform. Afraid they'll disappoint someone. Afraid to be seen as vulnerable. So they retreat. They go silent when they want to speak. They pull their hand back when they want to reach. They say, I'm fine, when they're anything but. And what do they lose? Joy, connection, a sense of being alive. I've seen men age 10 years and 2, simply because they had no one to share a moment of warmth with, no one to ask how their day went, no one to sit beside them and remind them they still mattered. But I've also seen transformation. I've seen men open their hearts after decades of hiding. I've seen them reach out again, to a partner, to a friend, even to a therapist, and begin to feel the spark return. Not just physically, but emotionally. Because here's the truth most people never say. Emotional closeness doesn't require a perfect body. It requires courage. The courage to say, I still want connection. The courage to ask, would you sit with me a while? The courage to let go of shame and step into softness. Whether you're married, widowed, divorced, or single, it's never too late to rediscover that part of yourself. You can build connection through conversation, through shared moments, through simple, honest gestures. You can move from surviving to living. So if you're sitting there wondering, could that still happen for me? My answer is this: yes, and maybe more than ever. Because in later life, when the masks have dropped and the pressure is gone, what remains is the most honest part of us. Tenderness, trust, presence. You don't have to chase fireworks. You just need to light a candle. Because even a quiet flame can warm the room. What you watch alone affects what you can feel together. There's a subject I rarely hear discussed, especially among older men. It's often brushed off, avoided, sometimes joked about, but it's real, and it has consequences that go far deeper than most people realize. I'm talking about adult digital content, videos, images, material watched alone, often in secret. Now, let me be clear. This isn't a moral lecture. I'm not here to shame or judge. What I want to offer is perspective, because in my years of working with men over 60, I've seen how this habit, especially when it becomes frequent or compulsive, can slowly erode a man's capacity for real connection. Let me tell you about Walter. He was 71, a former military officer, strong, proud, deeply disciplined. He came into my office for a routine visit, but his wife had quietly mentioned something in passing. We haven't been intimate in over 4 years. Walter didn't seem concerned. We've just grown apart, he said. But as I gently pressed, the truth came out. Every night, Walter watched adult content on his tablet. It started years ago, after retirement, during moments of boredom or loneliness. At first, it felt harmless. Then it became routine. Then it became easier than reaching for his wife. He hadn't touched her in years. And worse, he no longer wanted to. And here's why this happens, not just to Walter, but to so many others. Adult content creates an illusion. A world where everyone looks a certain way, responds a certain way, where everything is predictable, exaggerated, and perfectly edited. It offers endless novelty, instant gratification, no emotion, no conversation, no vulnerability. Over time, this trains the brain. It wires it for stimulation, not connection. Real-life intimacy, with all its texture, its slowness, its emotional complexity, starts to feel dull. A partner's body doesn't match what's on the screen. Their rhythm is different. Their voice, their scent, their imperfections, all of it begins to seem foreign, even irritating. And eventually, the real thing stops working. First, there's less arousal, then no response. Then, the man can only feel something with the screen, not without it. His desire disappears. His confidence crumbles. And his relationship quietly begins to dissolve. All of this happens without drama, without shouting, just silence, distance, a slow breaking of the thread that once held two people close. And here's the hardest part. Most men think it's just them. They don't realize their brain has been conditioned, like someone who eats only candy and finds fruit tasteless. They think they've lost interest, lost ability, lost connection. But what they've really lost is presence. I've seen marriages break not because of betrayal, but because of this silent drift. A man disappears into his own world. His partner feels rejected, confused, invisible. She doesn't know what's changed. He doesn't either, until it's almost too late. But it's not hopeless. I've also seen men come back. Men who made a different choice. Who said, I want to feel something real again. Men who took the brave step of turning off the screen. Not out of guilt, but out of hunger for something deeper, something lasting. It takes time. At first, their body doesn't respond. Their brain is slow to relearn. But gradually, through honesty, through support, through emotional safety, they begin to reconnect to their partner, to their own senses, to the possibility of closeness. Because real intimacy? It's not fast. It's not flashy. It's human. It breathes. It changes. It requires presence, not perfection. And yes, it takes patience, especially after years of conditioning, especially when shame enters the picture. But healing is possible. And for many men, it's the first step back into a life they thought was over. So if this is something you've struggled with, know this. You are not alone. You are not broken. And you don't have to carry this in silence. Reach out. Talk to someone you trust. A doctor, a counselor, a friend. Let someone in. Because what's waiting on the other side isn't shame, it's connection. And that connection might not look like a movie, but it will feel like something real, something earned, something alive. You deserve that. You always have. When you try to prove you still can, you risk losing what matters most. There's a moment that sneaks up on many men as they grow older. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't feel dangerous. In fact, at first, it feels empowering. It might come after a clean bill of health, or a compliment from someone younger, or a sudden wave of longing when you remember what it felt like to be 40, to feel strong, desirable, in control. And then, almost without thinking, the thought arrives. I've still got it. Or maybe, I need to show I still can. And somewhere deep down, the urge to prove something awakens. Now, on the surface, that might seem harmless, even healthy. Who doesn't want to feel attractive again? Who doesn't want to reclaim a sense of youthful power? But here's what I've seen too many times to count. That need to prove can become a trap. I've known men who drank more than they should to relax, skipped their blood pressure meds, worried it would interfere with performance, took a little blue pill without telling their doctor, treated intimacy like a stage, not a shared space. And when they entered that space, not grounded, not prepared, not honest, something went wrong. Their blood pressure spiked. Their heart raced beyond safe limits. Their body, already under strain, couldn't keep up with the performance. And sometimes, it didn't survive it. I'll never forget Leonard. He was 74, a charming man with a quick wit and a youthful spirit. He walked into my office one afternoon and said, grinning, "Doc, I met someone. She's younger. I need to keep up." I smiled, but I also cautioned him. "Leonard," I said gently, "your heart is strong, but it's not the heart you had at 40. Intimacy is physical effort. It's a cardiovascular event. Please, prepare your body." He nodded. "Don't worry. I know my limits." 2 weeks later, Leonard died of a heart attack in a hotel room. His partner called the ambulance, but it was too late. He didn't die because of intimacy. He died because of pride, because he tried to prove something to himself and didn't respect the truth of where he was in life. And he is not alone. I've spoken to widows, women whose husbands died in a moment of joy. But behind the stories are heartaches no one talks about. Because those deaths weren't romantic. They were preventable. And that's the most painful part. It doesn't have to end this way. Real intimacy, especially in the later decades of life, isn't about performance. It's not about proof. It's not about mimicking your younger self. It's about presence, about peace, about partnership. It's not a stage. It's not a contest. It's a shared space where two people meet, gently, honestly, with full permission to be exactly who they are now. Your value isn't in what you can still do. It's in how you show up, with softness, with respect, with wisdom. You don't need to impress. You've already lived. You've endured. You've succeeded. You've lost and loved and made it here. You are not here to perform. You are here to connect. And if that connection feels slower now, gentler, that's not a flaw. That's a gift. Because in youth, intimacy is driven by hormones. But in maturity, it's driven by choice, by kindness, by mutual care. So if you feel the pressure to prove something to yourself, to someone else, pause. Ask yourself, am I acting out of love or out of fear? Am I seeking connection or validation? And if the answer feels murky, slow down. Talk to your doctor. Support your heart. Protect your health. But most of all, protect the part of you that no longer needs to be enough for anyone but yourself. Because true power at this stage of life comes not from recapturing the past, but from creating something honest and beautiful now. Intimacy that's built not on speed or expectation, but on laughter and trust, and the quiet miracle of being with someone who accepts you as you are. That's not something to perform. It's something to feel. And that, my friend, is more than enough. With deep respect, Dr. James Warren. Age well today. Please consider supporting this channel. Click like if this resonated. Leave a comment. I read every single one. And if you haven't already, subscribe and tap the notification bell so you don't miss what's next. This space only grows through community, through people like you who believe that aging should be filled not with silence, but with meaning. Together, we're changing the way we talk about later life, one honest, hopeful conversation at a time. With deep gratitude, Dr. James Warren.